Film Club.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Film Club. I'm one of your hosts, Andy Harrison. With me, as always, it's Andy Donaldson.
Hello.
Every week in Film Club, we invite you along to watch a film with us. This week, we're taking a look at The Graduate.
And here's to you, Mrs. Robinson. Jesus loves you more than you will know. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Stand up tall, Mrs. Robinson. God in heaven smiles on those who pray. Hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey, hey.
The Graduate tells a tale of a very young Dustin Hoffman who has recently graduated an East Coast college, and he goes back home to meet his parents. His parents host a party and try to put him in the spotlight, and he comes across quite socially awkward. His parents' family friend, someone he knew quite well, like the wife who's married, tries to seduce him and ends up seducing him, taking him to hotels, and then suddenly he realizes he likes their daughter.
A film by a director called Mike Nichols. This is one of Mike Nichols' earliest films.
Is it?
And it's one of his films that really put him on the map. Not only did it do that for Mike Nichols, but obviously it did the same thing for Dustin Hoffman as well.
Oh, is this one of his first appearances? Like one of the ones that really shot him to fame?
It is. So there is a funny little tidbit
that's
actually,
so
because
cool.
he apparently got paid like $20,000 for starring in the film, which obviously isn't a lot at all. And then after
At the time.
apparently after like living expenses and stuff, he only really took away about $4,000 from the film. I'm really interested to see what your experience with it was, because it's a film that, if you've ever studied film, you've come across The Graduate. It comes up in lots of discussions here and there for a few reasons, but it is a weird and peculiar film.
I enjoyed it.
Ended with a question mark.
Right, okay. Do you want me to elaborate?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it started off really cool. I really like the idea of the socially awkward Dustin Hoffman. And as the film progresses, you think, oh, what's he going to do? You know, he's going to start... At first, I thought he was going to work for his parents' firm, to be fair. And I thought it was like, you know, this whole office environment where he's secretly having an affair with the what's he called? The leader's wife. And I thought, oh, this is going to be interesting. It's going to be like a nice bit of drama, like, and all this, like, early stage drama. Anyway, so he ends up having the affair. And then I don't like it because it's fucking annoying. I'm sorry, right? Can I just go... I mean, there's funny parts to it, Andy. It's put down as a romantic comedy or something, a rom-com. No, it's not. There are funny parts to it, but they're few and far between. It's when he goes to the hotel and he starts having an argument about his wife, and he finds out more about her relationship, how she's like, you know, she's an alcoholic and she's depressed, and, you know, all she does is cook. She doesn't really see her husband and all this, right? Fair enough, you know, there's a bit of character building. It doesn't go on any of that. All he does is get an argument with her, apologises, he's like kissing her feet, and then next thing, it's so topsy-turvy. The characters are so bipolar in their personalities that sense he goes for a date with the daughter and tries to like make her not want to go after him. Then he sees her crying, then suddenly he's like, oh, you know, I'm sorry, that's not me. And then suddenly she starts, what the fuck? She starts kissing him, right? How would you do that after a shit date? You just go and start kissing someone? I'm sorry, no. They have a really cool date thereafter, which is some sort of like driving or like radio cinema, and they eat, and then so I'll have to take you out the next day. And then suddenly, later on, she finds out about the affair. She's like, no, leave me alone. He goes over there. His personality completely shifts from this socially awkward individual to this person who's like almost like a creeper, someone who is like a stalker. And then she gets married, and she's like weighing up two guys, right? She's like, oh, kiss me. And then it's like, oh, no, I'm going to get married to the other guy. And then she's at the wedding, about to get married. And then she's like, no, sorry, I'm going to go about Dustin Hoffman. Sorry, that writing's appalling. So it started off well, Andy. Go on. Sorry.
It's all right.
Rant over.
I quite enjoyed that rant. So before I get onto some of the stuff which I quite enjoy about this film, I totally agree with a particular element that you brought up there, and it's the characterization in particular. The one who suffers the most from this, I think, is Elaine. I think that they almost didn't bother to write Elaine. She's just supposed to be like you know, something
she's
she's
the
an
actress
element
who did it?
that's used. Is it
Catherine Ross?
Catherine Ross.
Catherine Ross. So, like, obviously, really pretty actress. You know, she's just there to be a face. She's there for the audience to kind of like empathize with. How can you empathize with a personality that shifts like so? Oh my god, go on. Sorry, I cut you off.
She becomes this very passive character who doesn't really make any decisions for herself.
But even Ben's character is the same. He goes from this really socially awkward person to someone who's like angsty and like lashing out and then suddenly like he doesn't care about anything. He's got one goal in sight and he'll do anything. He's quite rude and obnoxious at points. It's just like what's going on? And he's supposed to empathize with the guy. He is supposed to be the protagonist. You're supposed to vouch for him. Nah.
Well, no, okay, so here's where we differ, I think. I don't think you are really supposed to necessarily vouch for Ben. Ben is representative of a generational feeling at that time. And this is where you get into what The Graduate's really about. And it's that discussion between generational divide. There is the old generation, the one who are set in their ways. They are the ones who are sort of trying to push Ben and in some ways manipulate Ben. And in some ways, they're trying to ride off of Ben's success, especially at the beginning of the film.
And I did take that from it. I did take that.
So that's obviously the Mrs. Robinson generation. And then throughout that entire film, Ben's only really exposed to those sorts of characters. It's a moment at which Elaine is introduced to the film where you can almost understand his attraction to her simply because she is of the appropriate age to him. And like you start to see that rebellious element come out in them. They don't necessarily want the same things. They don't necessarily know what they want at all. The only thing that they know what they want, and Ben sort of says this at the beginning, is they want something different. And that's what sort of, they get swept away in the romanticism of the idea of just the two of them allow each other to picture a different life. The film in the latter half goes off to Berkeley. And I think it's for me, it comes off the rails a little bit in that latter half.
100%.
Especially in terms of their relationship. Because, I mean, she goes so quickly from splitting up with him to getting married the very next day. And even when he turns up, to just, without any sort of reason or conversation, to again drop that wedding. The intention there, I think, is that the wedding is supposed to be this sort of symbolic element of she's being inducted into that older generation.
There's better symbolism to use for me.
Yeah, but I mean, going off the one they chose to use, that wedding doesn't use any young people. The entire wedding's being attended by the older generation. Even the guy she's marrying is like, he's a slightly old fogey sort of dude. Like, Ben makes fun of him for going down on one knee, and he turns up to the zoo like using a pipe. He's supposed to be a little bit sort of out of his own generation. He's supposed to represent something a little bit older. And again, that final moment where when push comes to shove, does she want to be inducted into this older, safer lifestyle, or does she want something that is scary and exciting? She takes the scary and exciting thing and goes with Ben. But the thing that I think has allowed this film a little bit to stand the test of time is that when they do they eventually get back on that bus, and when they do have a moment to let the adrenaline disappear, well, they're not in love.
I wrote that
here.
Yeah. All they do is just stare forward. There's no elation. There's no like kind of excitement towards one another apart from the initial, the running away part. They're just, two adolescents or like young adults. Sorry, I should say they're 21, aren't they? Young adults. Like, what do we do ourselves? Like, I don't know. It's just, it felt like they were just doing the moment for the sake of the moment. Which if that's what it's trying to represent, just be different. Then for me, I could understand what they're trying to do, but I don't buy into it.
Well, it absolutely is. What they've done there is they have let themselves get carried away with idealistic intentions and let themselves get carried away with the intention of what romance is meant to be. And then ultimately, when the reality smacks them in the face, they suddenly deflate. And that long shot on the bus together, where the realization of what they're actually doing hits them, that's quite a lovely moment. I think it's maybe my favorite moment in the entire film.
Well, I don't want to completely shit in the film because there are some funny parts that I pointed out. I wrote a little bit about her father, Elaine's father, and the husband of what's her name, who plays Anne Bancroft, Mrs. Robinson. Oh yeah, you'd actually learn her first name. Anyway, Mrs. Robinson. So the father, Mr. Robinson, he goes to pour a whiskey and he's like, Scotch, and then Ben goes, no, bourbon, and he doesn't give a shit. He pours in the same glass, and then he goes to get the ice out, and he gives Ben like fucking 4 ice cubes. Which anyone who drinks whiskey, you don't do that, especially with Scotch. And then later in the film, it goes back to that. He's like, "Oh, you still drink Scotch?
Again.
No, bourbon. I'll just fucking pour you Scotch." That part, I was giggling.
The earliest moment that really gets me is the diving gear. When his dad's giving this big sort of hype up, and he's trying to get him to come out, and every so often he nips back to the house, and all you get from inside is, "Dad, can we talk about this?" And just the deadpan delivery that's coming from Dustin Hoffman intercut with the energy that his dad's trying to like build up, and then just that wonderful sort of edit, the moment where he opens the door and you see him in the ridiculous diving gear. Cinematography, we have to give a call out here to Robert Surtees, because Robert Surtees is the guy who acted as cinematographer for this film, and his work on this is just, it's gorgeous. There is perpetual dedication to the idea of framing and frames within frames, as well as camera movement. He gives this constant sort of very dark but naturalistic lighting across everything.
It's a very natural looking film.
Use of natural light along with making it quite a dim and dark film is very unusual for a comedy, and that gives that sort of seedy overtone that I guess they wanted for. The guy knocked it out of the park. He really did. It's a gorgeous looking film.
There's something I really resonated with was the use of music, and in particular Simon Garfunkel.
Yeah.
So he's got a very folky soundtrack, and one of my top songs, which is Sound of Silence, it starts off in the film. It uses their many parts on. I really love the music in this film. Really, it helped bring it back.
There was 3 tracks that stood out to me from Simon Garfunkel, and that's The Sound of Silence, Mrs. Robinson, and the other third one is Scarborough
April
Fair.
Come. Oh no, but that was really cool. There was another one called April Come She Will, but yeah, Scarborough. That was a really good song. I like that. One
of the scene that has to be mentioned, because I've got to cut it in here. It's where he announces his engagement before he's even got engaged.
I actually enjoyed that scene because it was like the parents' reaction is just like super excited, then tone down. It's like maybe you should think about this.
As that realization hits them, and his mum's like, "So what makes you think that she wants to marry you?" And again, deadpan delivery from Dustin Hoffman, just going, "Oh, she doesn't." He just walks out of the room. The film came out in 1967. It did pick up the Oscar for Best Director. For Mike Nichols. It was nominated for Best Cinematography, but didn't actually win. It lost to a slightly different film that we'll come on to in a second. But there is The Graduate. You can let us know in the comments below what you thought of The Graduate, or you can hit us up on Twitter, as always. But Andy and I will be back once again next week, where we're going to take a look at that Best Cinematography winner. We're going to take a look at Bonnie and Clyde.
Bonnie and Clyde. Well played, sir.
So, until then, get watching.
Cheers.